Hey YouTube, I'm back with another video. This video will be for the NFL Week 2 predictions, however I first wanted to show how I did after Week 1. Week 1, we have a record of 11-3, starting off with a respectable record. Before getting into our first predictions, I just wanted to say thanks to anyone who watched my first video, and I do really appreciate any support and feedback. With that being said, let's get into the video. Starting us off on Thursday Night Football, we have the Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins, who both started off slow in their Week 1 matchups, and both came from behind to win the game. Josh Allen looked really impressive in that offense and really carried his team to a win, while Tua was definitely struggling, but a couple explosive plays to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle gave the Dolphins enough to win. As far as Bills versus Dolphins, I have to say I was way more impressed by the Dolphins defense than the Bills defense in Week 1, and my opinion is the better of the two defenses will be the deciding factor in this game. So I have the Dolphins winning in Week 2. Then we have the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Minnesota Vikings. 49ers fresh off a dominating performance over the New York Jets on Monday Night Football, with backup running back Jordan Mason rushing for 147 yards and 1 touchdown, while Brock Purdy just had to keep his game clean to cruise to a victory. The Vikings also had success with Aaron Jones, the former Packer, running for 94 yards and a touchdown, while Sam Darnold started off the game hot for 12 of 12 on passing and finishing with over 200 yards and 2 passing touchdowns over a terrible looking Giants team. As far as 49ers versus Vikings, although I liked what I saw from the Vikings in Week 1, 49ers just still look like the NFC juggernaut they have been for the past few years. I have the 49ers imposing their will over the Vikings in a Week 2 victory. Well, I tried to warn that the Bengals always start off slow, and we saw this as the Patriots upset the Bengals in Week 1. It was not a pretty game, but the Patriots made plays when they needed them. As for the Seahawks, they beat up on Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, whose offense looked anemic during most of the game. Seahawks offense didn't look too hot either, but were able to put up enough points, even with taking 2 safeties. For this matchup, I think Seattle is just the better roster from head to toe, and I think as these two rookie head coaches battle it out, the better roster will win. I'm picking the Seahawks to beat the Patriots in Week 2. What an ugly game by Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. The Commanders didn't look great either, with Jaden Daniels struggling, but eventually finding some success with 2 rushing touchdowns. Even with both teams not performing well in Week 1, I think this game is a no-brainer, with the Commanders and Jaden Daniels finding their footing against a lackluster Giants roster and winning convincingly in Week 2. Up next, we got the LA Chargers, who did as I said and won the Battle of the Trenches, with J.K. Dobbins stacking up 135 yards rushing with a touchdown. As for the Carolina Panthers, I gave them too much credit last week in thinking they were improved and could win against the Saints. The Panthers got dominated so bad, the game was basically over before halftime. I have learned from my mistake, so with the Chargers' impressive performance and the Panthers' terrible performance in Week 1, I have the Chargers throttling the Panthers in Week 2. Oh boy, now we have the New Orleans Saints, who just manhandled the Carolina Panthers in Week 1, with Derek Carr having a very efficient game, going 19 for 23 for 200 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, while the Cowboys played an excellent all-around game against the Browns team who was the #1 defense last season, and the new Mike Zimmer Cowboys defense looks to be the real deal, at least against Deshaun Watson. When it comes to this game, I see the Cowboys defense winning this game with intense quarterback pressures, having Derek Carr making mistakes, while the Cowboys offense keeps it simple, playing a balanced game, and Dak playing another efficient game. I will say, if the Saints do find a way to win this game, it will likely be due to winning the turnover battle, but I have to go Cowboys to win a likely lower scoring 24-21 game. Unfortunately, with Jordan Love out this next game, Colts versus Packers is not going to be as intriguing as it could have been. I really would have loved two teams who performed well against good teams in losing efforts to face off here in a possible shootout game, but given the Packers' difficulty in stopping the run against the Eagles and Colts having a dual threat dynamic quarterback in Anthony Richardson, as well as Jonathan Taylor as running back, I see the Packers struggling to stop the Colts offense and Packers having Malik Willis at quarterback, who just came over from the Titans in a trade. I don't think he will have that offense firing on all cylinders. So I have the Colts beating the Packers somewhat convincingly. This next game is honestly already getting into the must-win territory for both teams, being the Cleveland Browns and Jacksonville Jaguars. Browns coming off an atrocious offensive performance against the Cowboys, while the defense struggled to stop the Cowboys' offense, while the Jaguars had great early success, holding the Dolphins' offense to only 7 points in the first half, while putting up 17 points in the first half, but then not scoring a single point in the second half, and eventually the Dolphins' dynamic playmakers made the necessary plays to get them back in the game and come out with the win. As far as the Browns and Jaguars game is concerned, I'm going to take the Jaguars to win, as their defense impressed me in week 1, and if they can do anything like what the Cowboys did to that Browns offense, then this game might not even be close. I'm going to trust what I saw in the Jaguars defense in week 1 over the unknown of how the Browns offense will compete, and have the Jaguars winning in week 2. Next up, we got the New York Jets versus the Tennessee Titans. Titans defense looked really good, holding Caleb Williams to under 100 yards passing, and the Bears offense to under 150 yards total. But Mayo Man, Will Levis, did everything he could to give the Bears the victory, throwing 2 terrible picks, which were very bad decisions. Jets, on the other hand, had a piss-poor showing on defense, letting a backup running back looking like Christian McCaffrey when this defense had been regarded as a top 10 defense. The run defense was miserable, and the pass defense had leaks all over the field. As for their offense, Aaron Rodgers had one really solid drive, and other than that, it was mostly short passes for 1 to 5 yards or runs that went nowhere. All that being said, the Jets just have the better pieces and better roster, so I'll be picking them to win, but if they lose, I think it is already time to panic. Next, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming off a hot win versus the Commanders, looking dominant on offense with Baker Mayfield going 24 of 30 for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns, while their defense locked the Commanders' offense down, in which Jaden Daniels' top 2 targets were his 2 running backs Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson. Lions just won a Sunday night matchup against the LA Rams, which was the only overtime game of the week, in which the Lions' offensive line and run game really showed out, especially in overtime, with their final drive to score and win the game. As far as this matchup is concerned, I'm still fairly high on the Buccaneers and do think they have a chance to win this game, but this Lions team looks motivated and on a mission to prove last year wasn't a one-off year. I have the Lions beating the Buccaneers in week 2. Then we have the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Baltimore Ravens. Raiders did not look good offensively and let the Chargers run all over them at will. Ravens lost a close battle against the Chiefs in which they abandoned the run game yet again. However, I see this game as the Ravens' bounce-back game where they get back on track, get Derrick Henry the ball, and run for 150 to 200 yards of offense. Therefore, I will be picking the Ravens to win in week 2. Now we've got an interesting game. The LA Rams, who looked good in a loss against the Lions, or about as good as you can look in a loss, with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp looking like possibly the best quarterback and wide receiver combo in the league, looked to bounce back against the Arizona Cardinals. A Cardinals team that was a bad no pass interference call away from probably winning against the Bills in week 1. I think this game is very important as I see the winner of this game being a potential wild card spot in the NFC. That being said, I played it risky last week picking the Cardinals, but I just feel the Rams are a much better team and should win this game. Time for Burrowhead as the Cincinnati Bengals travel to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. I was right about the Bengals always starting their seasons off slow and should have committed, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I only say this because now the Bengals, who looked awful last week, will probably come into Arrowhead and somehow beat the reigning two-time Super Bowl champion Chiefs. The Chiefs starting off where they left off, just looking like the best team in the NFL with a fantastic new weapon in Xavier Worthy. When talking about this game, it really should be a clear, decisive winner, which is why I'm picking the Chiefs, but I honestly would not be surprised if the Bengals win a game they shouldn't after losing a game they shouldn't have. I got the Chiefs starting off 2-0. What a treat we got next. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers who beat the Falcons without scoring a single touchdown against the Denver Broncos. Like, I know I predicted the Steelers defense to win them the game, but oh my god. That defense carried their lackluster offense to a victory alongside their kicker, Chris Boswell, who was 6 of 6, scoring all 18 of the Steelers' points. Then we have the Broncos, who honestly had a decent showing defensively against the Seattle Seahawks, but Bo Nix made big mistakes in that game. Now, Nix has to face a daunting Steelers defense in this Week 2 matchup, in which I have the Steelers defense carrying them to another victory for the second week straight, maybe even in a 9-3 final score with no touchdowns scored. All right, up next, we got the Chicago Bears versus the Houston Texans. The Bears and Caleb Williams had less than 150 yards of total offense and only beat the Titans due to their special teams blocking a punt, which they returned for a touchdown, and their defense scoring a pick six. Texans, on the other hand, won a very competitive game against the Colts, which might live up to my Week 1 predictions of a storied rivalry for years to come. This game seems like a no-brainer after the Week 1 results, in which CJ Stroud, known for making very few mistakes and causing very few turnovers, will likely keep their game clean and force the Bears' offense to beat them, which I don't think will happen. I have the Texans beating the Bears in Week 2. Lastly, we have the Monday Night Football game in which the Atlanta Falcons are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Falcons had a terrible offensive performance last week versus the Steelers, but the Eagles' defense didn't look too great either in their win over the Packers, so I feel this game will help us figure out which one is actually bad this year. Jalen Hurts had 3 turnovers last week and had a couple more passes that should have been picked, so I feel the Eagles are going to focus on running the ball and playing complementary offense, trying to keep Jalen Hurts' game clean, and I think the Eagles will win against a possibly overhyped again Falcons roster. And that's it for Week 2 predictions. I plan on making predictions for every week of the NFL this season, and might branch out to other football-related content. If you have any ideas, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. Other than that, please like and subscribe as it is greatly appreciated as it lets me know you want to see more. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.